Warning. The following video contains strong language that some viewers may find offensive or disturbing.
What's the most American thing ever that if explained to a non-American might just sound crazy? The best chicken joints in the hood usually have bulletproof glass. From Detroit. Can confirm. 10 years ago I was visiting Detroit for a film festival and afterward we were pretty hungry. It was Sunday and the area was depressed, so lots of places were closed. We finally found a pizza place that was open and walk in. There was bulletproof glass and a rude fat cashier that took our order. After we told him what we wanted, he shouted to a room in the back. The chef came out smoking a cigarette. He tossed the pizza while smoking the cigarette. Complete culture shock. Best pizza I ever had. Though. There is a place a short drive from my house that is a firearms, military merchandise store in the front half of the building, and in the back half, just down a short hallway, is a barbecue restaurant. It's a magical place. When I was in Tennessee as an exchange student for a year, I was surprised by the team spirit of each high school. Like how there was a football game every Friday night and almost all of the school was there to cheer them on. That would never happen in my country. Spectating as a high school kid was mainly a way to socialize, meet up, and find out where the parties were. At least when I was in high school, pre-cell phones, that's what we did. No one really watched the actual sport because it's rarely a quality game. Warehouse-type grocery stores, Costco. Super saver. My great-uncle from Australia would always take photos and my Korean, non-Seoul, friends thought this was crazy we'd have so much space for a grocery store. As a South African, what amazed me was the competitors call each other out in advertisements. I couldn't believe it at first, it seemed so unusual. The first rule of advertising is, if you're on top, you don't acknowledge the competition's existence. But if you're not on top, you highlight your strengths, differences from the top company. That's why you'll never see McDonald's talk about a competitor in their commercials. But Burger King and Wendy's do. Adverts for medication, you've got happy people and stuff in the ad and then, it may cause death. Advertising prescription medications is definitely weird. But the whole may cause thing is from a big list of reported effects. There is no requirement for confirmation or causal evidence. So if you take a prescription hay fever medication and then stub your toe, you can report that as a loss of coordination. This is why there is a drug that includes the warning that it may cause rapid muscle growth, green skin and anger issues. French guy who lived in NC for a while here. To me, the weirdest thing was all the advertisement for prescription drugs on TV, radio, and online. It's crazy waking up in the morning and suddenly while you're having your morning coffee and cereals, your TV starts spewing stuff about some random meds like they're Tic Tacs you can just arbitrarily decide you need. The worst is honestly the mandatory side effect warning at the end of every ad. I nearly choked on my egg sandwich the first time that voice came up warning people about horrific stuff that could potentially happen if they took the drug. I have lived in quite a few countries around the world, and the US is the only place where I saw this. Edit. Wow. 11K upvotes for my first ever Reddit comment. Thank you y'all. I think I will use this thread and ask something to you Americans. Are the movie stereotypes of cheerleaders and football players true? Do all schools have a football team with associated cheerleaders? And are the people who join them usually popular kids? I am only right upstairs in Canada, but I've never even heard of a school that has cheerleaders. Also, what is a homecoming dance? Almost all high schools have football teams, and if there is a football team there is likely a cheerleading squad. Sports are expensive, whether buying equipment, going to camps, or traveling to away games. So the kids aren't necessarily popular but are usually not poor. Typically outgoing types join sports as well. Perhaps the sports even contribute to their outgoing personalities by giving them frequent socialization. The cheerleaders undergo extensive dance and gymnastics training in addition to competitions and games. So also expensive and lots of socialization. As a Brit, What shocked me was learning about just how huge your college sports games are. A university, college football, soccer, team game here might draw a crowd of a few hundred. A friend who went to the University of Texas told me their American football stadium seats 100. Oh, what the actual fuck? I remember explaining to an Italian friend that in the US we can vote and own a gun and fight in a war at 18 but can't buy a beer, and he was completely at a loss for words. I'm from the NL and honestly I have many questions for the US. Most burning on though is why are your toilet stall doors so damn high above the ground? I don't know and I'm still not used to it. The worst is the size of the cracks between the door. The amount of times I've made eye contact with someone while sitting on the toilet is more than I'd like. Shooting a red sports car into space seemed like a pretty quintessentially American thing to do. How about shooting yourself up in the air in a homemade steam-powered rocket to prove that the Earth is flat, and dying as a result of it? This can definitely only happen in USA. The man is Mike Hughes if you're interested. Play the national anthem at almost every event. I went to an American elementary school for 6 months back in 1980. I can still recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm from Belgium. Still weirded out about refills and sizes of drinks specific to soda. The low bar to get a driver's license. Traveling between major cities, the distances are insane, especially just feeling completely alone in the middle of nowhere. Sometimes it's just indescribably marvelous to be driving alone in the middle of nowhere. If my car is in fairly good condition and I am 75 miles from the nearest town, just pull over and stop to enjoy the solitude. Even at night if it's clear. To finally be able to see, not just the stars, but the Milky Way too. I used to drive 4 hours to see my GF when she was in college. A lot of that was through rural Ohio. There's nothing like an empty road and some great songs on the radio to put you at peace. Health insurance, premiums, deductibles, coinsurance, copays, out-of-pocket maximums, in-network, etc. It's an insane amount of knowledge that you need to have to make a good decision about your health coverage. And no one teaches you any of this shit. You have to go and learn it yourself on the internet. This is intentionally done by health insurance companies to defraud the American people. They keep the system as complicated and expensive as possible. Then they lobby, advertise to keep the system the way it is. Or, if someone does try to change it, they make sure it's changed in a way that benefits them. Obama's ACA was basically neutral in terms of helping people, but insurance companies made a shitload more money. Instead of discussing this, most American politicians simply argue about increasing federal healthcare spending versus decreasing federal healthcare spending, and never dig any deeper than that, ignoring the fact we already spend more than anyone else in the world and receive less. I've visited the US a couple of times. I'm a South African, Brit, and the TV adverts are like nothing I've ever experienced anywhere else. The crazy political adverts where they do nothing but insult the opposition. The medicine, drug adverts. Good grief. Those lists of side effects. It makes the drug sound more dangerous than whatever it's meant to treat. My fiancé's favorite though was a petrol advert, gas. To you guys I guess. It made it sound as if filling your tank with their brand was the ticket to a better life. That advert had American flags everywhere. Bald eagles. And the best tagline in the world, buy a tank full of freedom. That was a few years ago and we still joke about going to get a tank full of freedom when we fill up our car. Freedom Gas, brought to you by Saudi Arabia. But on a serious note, the car has been a symbol of freedom of sorts in the US for a long time. Not freedom as in free from tyranny and oppression, but rather freedom as in freedom of movement. The US is so massive and our public transportation infrastructure is so bad that in most places a car is the only way to get food or to work. And when young adults get their driver's license and their first car, it represents freedom from having to ask for rides. Proms and homecoming dances, I don't know if they are one and the same or how many there are. Americans make such a huge deal out of it that pass around awards for whoever is the prettiest, dances the best. The whole thing just seems so bizarre and out of this world to a European that I have to ask if any of you can explain in detail why they are the way that they are lol. We just organize with the teachers some school parties that are usually in big clubs once or twice a year, and they turn a blind eye on alcohol because you guys are also really strict on alcohol until you're 21. Another kinda odd thing is when you guys are allowed to drink you just go all over the news in Mediterranean places for causing trouble. They're different. Usually homecoming is a formal dance in the fall and prom is a formal dance in the spring. The boys usually go around asking the girls to go with them either as a romantic or just friendly gesture, if they aren't already in a relationship. It can get ridiculous. Boys can go to great lengths with posters, puns, and flowers to get a date. The typical prom or homecoming is held in the school gym. Many schools, in order to pay for decorations and music, charge tickets to both events. It can get ridiculous. When I was in high school, my school charged $35 per person, and since I had to get a date and pay for hers, it would cost me $70. My friends and I, since some had already rented tuxedos for the event, went to a fancy steak dinner instead of prom one year. Dinner and after parties are usually included in both affairs, usually done between a group of friends. While you might find it hard to find alcohol at the prom itself, house parties are a different story. Again, it can get ridiculous if some kids have parents rich enough. They'll have limousines to drive them and their friends and dates around, as well as an actual venue for their after party. I couldn't tell you if prom and homecoming as notions are dying off, but people do seem to take them less seriously these days. At least from my experience of high school. It could be different elsewhere in the US. I studied in Chicago for a month at 17, and I was so confused as to why all your bread was sweet. I get migraines if I eat too much sugar, and I basically lived off of chips, mac and cheese, and the salad bar in our accommodation. On the 4th of July I just ate a bowl of carrots dipped in ranch dressing as I didn't eat meat at the time. It still had enough sugar to knock me out. Also, your painkiller bottles are huge. I had to buy ibuprofen and the smallest bottle was like 100 pills. I haven't finished it yet, and that trip was 2 years ago. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button. See you next time.